back off a bit. How are we doing this morning? We having a great summer? About ready to start driving some bus again? All right, before I get started, telling you about myself and a story about my life that I hope will inspire you a little bit. I want to first, how many people think their job is important? You should all have your hand up. How many of us have children? Think about this. I'm a cop, right? I've been in the military and in the service industry my whole life, serving others. Is this mic picking me up down here? Can you hear me okay? Okay. I feel like I'm like eating it if it's too close to my face. Think about this. As a father, I'm very protective, especially as a father of, I'm a police officer, so I'm always worried about things happening to my kids because I see a lot of bad things happen in the world. The most traumatic moment of any new parent, the most worrisome moment of any new parent is when they send their kid off to school for the first day. Who gets my kid first? You guys. You're the first person other than me or a family member that I trust to drive my child to a place that I don't get to see him for the next 6-7 hours. So your value in the entire grand scheme of life is gigantic. The responsibility that you have as the keeper of my most precious gift is gigantic. So please give yourself a round of applause for doing that well. All right, a little bit about me. I am, first and foremost, the son of Louise Jones. Awesome lady. I'm an emotional guy, so you're probably going to cry up here, which is going to maybe feel awkward to you, but I do it every single time, so I'm okay with it. I hope you guys are too. My wife, Lauren, been married 21 years. She's amazing. I way outkicked my coverage with her. She's a beautiful woman. I have 2 kids. My daughter, Rebecca, who is 20, going to be 21 in a little bit. She's going to be a junior in college. She's an academic and athletic All-American swimmer at Bloomsburg. My son, Andrew, is going to be a sophomore, going to be 16 in a couple months, and only wants to be me. That's the only person he wants to be. He wants to go in the military, wants to be a Navy SEAL, wants to kill terrorists. I'm going to have to make sure he goes to college first. I want to make sure he has the ability to lead men when he gets out of college and goes in the military. That's what I'm training him to become as a leader. I've been a cop for 25 years. I've moved around a lot. I started in Royersford Borough, full-time in 1993. Shortly after I got out of the Army, I was an Army intelligence analyst. Active duty for 4 years, stationed in Germany, Persian Gulf War veteran. Worked in Royersford for 3 years, and I went to West Pottsgrove Township, which is on the west side of Pottstown. Worked there for 7 years, and then 9/11 happened. We all remember that, right? I am a patriot at heart. Everything I do is about God, country, honor, duty, all those key demographics that I fit into. So when 9/11 happened, I got pissed. And I saw on the TV that President Bush was reenacting the Sky Marshal program, which is what it was called prior to 9/11. And at the time, there were only 33 Sky Marshals in the country, flying on commercial aircrafts anywhere in the world that are owned by the United States. So I saw that he was reenacting this program, and the whole purpose of that program is to prevent terrorists from taking over airplanes and flying in buildings and killing 3,000 people, right? So 900,000 people applied for that job. And I was one of about 4,000 that got hired. And against my wife's wishes, by the way. But she trusts me. That's one thing I always tell my wife, is that I will never fail you. If you trust me, I won't fail you. So my wife trusted me, and I went off to the middle of nowhere in New Mexico to train for 4 months. Was trained by Delta Force and Navy SEALs, and it was the best training of my life. But the worst job I ever did in my life. It was by far the single hardest job I've ever done for the simple fact that I was never home. I was traveling all over the world, constantly jet lagged when I was home, miserable, proud that I was doing my job as a patriot, but I was conflicted inside as to where I was supposed to be. So after 4.5 years, I left that job and I became a cop in Collegeville Borough, where I'm still today. 9 years ago, I started a company called MaxOut, which is a fitness-based business located in Limerick. I'm not a fitness professional, but what I am is a risk taker. And a friend of mine, who at the time was working for a guy who was one of the investors in the original Max Out, who was going under, and he said, hey, I think we have an opportunity to get involved in something. Let's look at it. So I did. It was the single coolest thing I've ever done in my life. It's a piece of strength training equipment. If you don't lift weights, I get it. I didn't either. But I did 12 repetitions, and then I went outside and puked in the trash can. So I said to myself, whatever that is, whatever caused that, I want to be a part of it. We moved everything up to Pennsylvania, and for 9 years we've been operating a gym and owning a piece of technology that allows us to work with people who have goals that's just for fitness level, people with that are athletes that want to become stronger and faster, and also neuromuscular and neurological patients. So we all know Sue Yanos. All right, so Sue's husband, Tony, you know all about him, right? Tony's a good buddy of mine. Been friends for 25 years. Tony had a stroke. I work with people that have strokes. After they get out of the acute care phase, and they're able to start, after insurance is over and they tell them they're good for wherever they are, I step in and I help. So that's one of my passions as well. But while I started Max Out, I created a program for kids that helped them become better leaders. And it started just with the kids that were coming into Max Out. And what I found out, though, is that I was kind of being very selfish in the fact that I was only allowing it for people who could afford to come to my gym. Because we're in a personal training space, so it's not necessarily Anytime Fitness or Planet Fitness. So I decided I was going to take it outside the 4 walls of my gym and take it into the schools. And that was about 5 years ago. I started going into schools and training kids on how to become leaders, using the program that I developed to help them become better leaders. That static's getting a little bit annoying, but I think we'll make it through. I think if I move away, maybe that'll help. So once I started doing that, I realized that I enjoyed it. I realized that I was good at it. But the one thing I was missing was the fact that I don't have time. So I work 50 hours a week as a cop. I run a company. I train people all week long, another 40 hours a week. I'm a husband and father, so I go to all my kids. I never miss a sporting event or a swim meet or anything like that. So what I was sacrificing was myself. But after a while, you start stealing from other places in order to satisfy the needs that people have of you. And I realized that in order for me to do that, I needed to create time. So I created an opportunity for myself to become a public speaker as a profession. And I started doing that about 18 months ago. And over the last 18 months, I've been building my I Got You speaking brand, which is what you see on the screen there. And I called it I Got You because my entire life has been about service. Whenever anybody needed me, I said, I got you. And that's kind of always stuck with me. And a friend of mine said, that sounds like a great idea as the name of your company, what your brand should be, because it really defines who you are. So that's how I got here today. And Sue was nice enough to recommend me for this job today, and I hope I do her right by giving you a speech that allows you to be inspired, to understand your worth in your business and your company, how much I'm sure that they respect you, and know that you hold the single greatest power, and that's the protection of our children. We go from point A to point B in the morning and in the evening so that we get our children back safe. So, without further ado, I'm going to start with my program. So today I'm going to try to inspire you to become leaders and live a life of selfless service, worthy of remembrance. What do I mean by that? Life of selfless service, worthy of remembrance. Anybody? This is going to be interactive. Raise a hand. Anybody that knows what I'm talking about there? Yes, ma'am. Yes. Absolutely. You want to live a life. I live my life every single day with one goal. I don't know what tomorrow brings. My brother died when I was 18, so I don't know if tomorrow's promised. But I know one thing, that when I die, there's going to be a room full of people that stand up and say I was a good man, and that I meant something. And I live every day trying to make sure that I make that impact in somebody's life. So I dedicate every day of my life to a mighty purpose. What is a mighty purpose to you? Anybody have a mighty purpose in their life? Anybody? Raise your hand. It's time to share. Yes, ma'am. Living for God's glory. Absolutely. Listen, this isn't going to be a preachy thing, but I believe in God. All right? I believe that there's somebody above me, a higher power that allows me to do what I do and has a plan for me. So I live every day knowing that I have that gift. So every day I live my life with a mighty purpose. Anybody ever read this quote before that's written on that piece of metal? Your life is made of 2 days and a dash. Make the most of that dash. Is this the first time you guys have heard that?
Yes.
That might be the most powerful quote I've ever heard. Think about it. When you die, you get a tombstone. And on that tombstone, what's man? That's true, only if you have a tombstone. But the fact is you will have 2 days in the dash. There's no doubt about that. So, for the most of us, if we get a tombstone, there's going to be 2 days in the dash. And like I said earlier, when you pass on, the life that you've lived is the legacy that you leave behind for others to remember. Everything you do in your life has value. The most minor thing in life is not simply a moment. It's a connected chain of events that lead from the day you were born until the day that you die. And it defines who you are as a human being. Everything you do, every single moment of your life has value. That's me and my brother, 1972. I'm the little one. My mother didn't, when we were poor, she didn't believe in buying anything new. So she bought thinning shears and scissors at an antique store. And she didn't know that you needed to sharpen those things. So she would cut our hair by basically ripping it out of our heads into the shape of what looked like, she called it the Dutch boy. But yeah, that's me and my brother, Andy. 1976, I was 5. This is in Rehoboth Beach, Delaware. We would go every year for a few days. My mom and her best friend, who had 2 kids as well, both divorced. We sort of lived together most of my childhood because we were poor, like I said. And they would save enough money for us to stay in this old farmhouse in town in Rehoboth. 2 bedrooms, 6 of us staying in there. And it was the best time ever. So this is just a memory of me, my brother, and my mom. It's my brother and I, when I was 13, he was 16. And that's my brother's graduation picture. The importance of this, and the reason why I show you these pictures, is I'm going to tell you a story about my brother. And this is the part where I usually cry. So, growing up in Pottstown, my brother was autistic before there was autism. My brother was labeled mentally retarded. And he stuttered profusely. So much so that his face would contort and his eyes would roll into the back of his head. And it was uncomfortable for him. It was uncomfortable for me. It was uncomfortable for anybody that was around me to be in that spot when he was having those moments where his face was contorting and he couldn't speak. But as his little brother, you would think that I'd be the one that he'd be protecting. Unfortunately, we had kind of a role reversal in our life, where I was the older brother by proxy because he just wasn't necessarily capable of being the older brother because of the situation he was in. From the time I can remember until I was 18 and he was 21 when he died, I was his protector. For every day that he got picked on, I got into a fist fight. And every fist fight I got into, I learned something about myself. I learned how to overcome, how to fight hard, how to be resilient. And I learned what it was meant to stand up for somebody. July 12, 1989, I was working at a pizza shop. We had just come home from vacation with my parents. My parents went back down for another week. My brother was staying with my grandmother, and I was staying with friends. And I get a phone call from my biological father, who I really had no relationship with. He left when I was 9 months old. The only person the hospital could contact was a number of my brother. He had two phone numbers in his wallet. One was our home number, one was my dad's. My parents were obviously away, so they got a hold of my father. My brother had been in a violent car accident. And yes, he drove. The mentally retarded kid, everybody said was mentally retarded, got his driver's license, graduated high school, albeit when he was 20. He accomplished all these things that everybody said he would never accomplish. And the day that he died, he didn't do anything wrong behind the wheel. He had a medical emergency, something happened where he was unconscious. It was in the summer, obviously in July. His head was sloped down onto the window, which was down, and he veered into oncoming traffic and hit head on with another vehicle. He was rushed to Hahnemann Hospital in Philadelphia, where he died in the operating room. Well, the day I got the phone call from my dad, I had, all he could tell me was my brother was in an accident, he was in surgery. Everything became real blurry after that. because I was so worried about my brother, but I went to my friend's house where I was staying. My mom calls. My mom's sobbing on the phone, obviously. But at this point in time, I hadn't found out that my brother was dead. My mom couldn't get the words out, and all I kept saying was, "Mom, I know." So she assumed that I knew that my brother had died. Next morning, I get up and I go to work. I'm working and my mom shows up. And my mom got this dumbfounded look on her face, like, "What the hell are you doing here? Why are you not at home?" And I said, "Mom, there's nothing I can do for Andy right now at the hospital. I need to work to get my mind off of it." And she said, "You don't know?" I said, "No what?" And then she told me that he died. From that moment on, for the next 13 years, my heart was shattered. Completely shattered. A month after my brother died, I went in the Army. I had an option to not go in the Army because I was the sole surviving son. I chose to take it because my brother was really proud that I had chosen to become a soldier. How many people have suffered loss? How many people have suffered surprise loss? Crushes you, doesn't it? Imagine being 18 years old. You're the keeper of your brother. Literally, I was my brother's keeper. Every day of my life, I spent protecting him. The day he died, I had an opportunity, or I'd been told by my stepdad, if I had the opportunity to take him to and from work, that would have been a good idea because he had had some clutch issues in his car. Now, mind you, the clutch didn't fail, and that's not why he was in the accident. But from the day he died, that feeling of guilt that I didn't drive him, that day still haunted me. So for 13 years, I put myself through hell. On the outside, it looked like I was living life like a normal human being. I went in the Army, I served my country. I did so valiantly. I was decorated. I got out of the Army and I became a police officer. I did everything I could to challenge God to take me. Every opportunity I had to go into a burning house or a dangerous situation, I took it. And I wanted God to take me. I was angry at God. It didn't make sense why someone who had absolutely nothing, there's no reason why my brother should have died. He served God great. He was pure, he was honest, he was loving, and it was wrong. So for 13 years, I punished myself, I punished God, I drank excessively, I did a lot of things that were negative for myself, while on the outside living this fake facade of okay. I got married in 1997. I met my wife in 1994. Imagine knowing that you didn't love your wife, but yet you should. When I say I didn't love my wife, I don't mean I didn't love her or didn't want to love her. I physically couldn't love. I didn't know how. My heart was shattered. 9 months after we got married, we had a baby, my daughter. The minute I saw her, I felt nothing. Nothing. You know how much that sucks to say? So, I have a protection gene inside me. I protect. I knew it was my job to be a good husband. I was faithful. I was present as much as I could possibly be. I was a present father. I took care of my daughter. I raised her with everything that I could give her, but I couldn't give love. "9/11 happens. Find out my wife's pregnant with another child. I didn't want another child. I wasn't sure I was worthy of another child because I knew what was going on and I couldn't stop it. I knew that I wasn't loving the first one. How could I possibly do the same thing to another one? And it wasn't a surprise, we planned it, but my wife knows me, and she knows what I need. And I think even though she didn't know deep down inside what was going on inside of me, she knew this would help. So I come back from my training in the Air Marshals, and a couple months later I had a son in 2002. And I named him after my brother. Now, that was important to me, for obvious reasons. And when I saw him for the first time, I felt something. I don't know if it was necessarily love. I don't know if it was joy. I don't really know what it was, but I felt something. And a few months after my son was born, I started to really identify with him, and it was almost familiar when I looked at him. Does that make sense? This is the tough part. So a few months after my son was born, we had family over. And it's normally when you have a baby, the wives and the moms and the grandmothers and everybody gets together and they distribute onesies and pacifiers and stuff like that. And the dads go into the kitchen, drink a beer, talk football. So my grandmother was my step-grandmother. My maternal and paternal grandparents all died well before this. There's 3 women in the world I'm afraid of: my wife, my mother, and my grandmother. So my grandmother, when she tells me that she needs me in the room where all the gifts are being handed out, I'm a little confused, obviously. So I sit down, and she hands me a box. And in this box is a quilt. Now, has anything I said to this date make you think that I'm going to appreciate a quilt? Nah. Don't steal my thunder yet. So she hands me this quilt, and I look at the quilt, and I go, it's a quilt. And I fold it back up, and I hand it back to her, and I say, I think this is for Lauren, my wife. And she looks at me with this face that I've seen many times. That face of knock it off, pay attention, look at it. So I unwrap again, and pull it out of the box. Now if you remember, I said earlier that my brother was staying with my grandmother the week that he died. That meant she was doing his laundry. For 13 years, she kept his clothes. I don't know why. I don't know why she didn't give it to me when my daughter was born. Sorry about that. The quilt was yellows and blues and whites and had 2 teddy bears with the name Andy inscripted on it. And after a couple seconds, it hit me that they were my brother's clothes. Needless to say, that was kind of a big moment. That night, I was a wreck, kind of like now, but like 100 million times worse. So I went down in my basement office, and I started to write memories about my brother. And I stayed there all night. When I came up that morning, so we lived in Douglasville at the time, and my basement steps would come up into the kitchen. And when you open the door, the kitchen window was literally right across from the basement door. And I saw light and particles of light and color so vibrantly for the first time in 13 years. And that night I wrote 26,000 words of memories about my brother. It's a lot of writing. but I felt completely free after I did it. Imagine the world's weight on your shoulders, the guilt, the pain, the anger, all of a sudden gone. Now mind you, I wasn't 100% like, yay, me, I'm great now. But I knew at that moment I was going to be okay. What do you do with 26,000 words? Anybody? You write a book. So I had not read a book, and this is not a lie. I had a 4.0 in high school, had a full ride to the Coast Guard Academy, enlisted in the Army, long story. But I only read one book in high school, and that was Animal Farm in 9th grade. So my mother, who at the time was an English teacher, she was 35 years as an English teacher. I called her up and I said, Mom, last night I wrote 26,000 words about Andy. What do I do? She said, you write a book. I said, Mom, I haven't read a book since Animal Farm. She said, well, maybe you should start. So I did. I started reading. As an air marshal, you have a lot of time, right, on airplanes and airports. So I read a lot of books, and I realized, you know, I'm not writing fiction. I don't have to create character development or anything like that. I'm just telling my story. So I wrote a book. That's me in the Army. I'm the one on the left. There's the quilt. So the Andy stitched in the center was from his work shirt. He worked at Frederick Mennonite Home as a janitor. And the blue paisleys are bandanas he would keep for when he was sweating. And the white was his undershirts. And the yellow was a shirt. We had matching shirts one Easter. My mom was really big on that. So that's the quilt. And there's the book. So I wrote that book and published it in 2006. And that book is the single greatest accomplishment of my life. For many reasons. Growing up, Andy didn't have friends. Obviously, it was uncomfortable for people to be around, and it was hard for him to socialize and interact. His only friends were really my friends for the most part. This is my opportunity to create friends for Andy. I've sold thousands of copies of that book, and I get lots of emails, and I get lots of people giving me their thoughts on the book, and every single one of them now knows Andy. It's also a history book for my kids, for my wife, for people in my life who know the story, who know his value in my life, that never knew him. It was also my final gift to my brother. Told you, I'll kick my coverage there. You can see my wife on the far right. I was taken down at the beach. That's Rebecca and Andrew, and obviously yours truly. All right. Now that we're going to get in a little bit more of an upbeat portion of this program. I apologize if I brought you down a little bit, but I want you to understand why I do what I do. Why I'm in front of you today, bearing my soul, willing to do that into a group of people I don't know. Because I need you to understand how passionate I am about living my life so well that when I die, those 2 dates in the dash have a meaning. And I want to inspire you guys to have something in your life that inspires you to do that. Some of you are closer to the last date. Some of us are closer to the first date. It doesn't really matter because none of us know when that end date comes. So when you're living your life every single day, you should be doing so with that idea in mind that you got to make the most of your dash. So I'm going to show you 2 videos. How much time do I got?